Welcome again to this series of Introduction to Ergonomics. In this third lecture, I want to begin with the work physiology and work measurement, because to understand the problems related to the work, it is very important, first of all, to assess what is going on, what level of risk is involved. To understand this, it is very important to initially learn about the basics of muscle physiology and metabolism. Although I am not a physiologist, I don't know much health sciences, but the basic requirement for ergonomists is to understand the basic physiology of the skeletal muscle and how the energy is generated, which is being utilized as mechanical power, mechanical energy, which or we utilize through our upper extremities, either hands, neck, shoulder, elbow joints. So all these are involved in many kind of motor activities. What human experience is nothing but stress and strain. Stress, which we call stimulus, the effect of the environment, effect of the surrounding, either it is load, it is a condition, it is a tool you are using, it is a kind of effort which person has to apply. For example, in rickshaw pulling, the effort is different. In metal cutting, effort is different. In sewing, effort is different. In typing, effort is different. So all these are stimulus. But what we call this may be through the environment, this may be through the work, this may be through the tools, this may be through the technique. Now these are all which we refer as stress. Now what we can see here as the factors, sources of stress may be heavy work, it may be immobilization, it may be heat or cold, noise, sleep loss, danger, sleep loss due to long duty of night hours, information overload. Maybe the person has to do a big data work or data mining or these kind of things where much of the information load is in banking, in call centers. Boredom. For example, we see the watchman sitting at one place and just watching the person in and out. Boredom. Loneliness, person doing the task very alone, doing a cleaning of a big parking facility, for example. So these are all we call stimulus, and these are basically a stimulus of the environment, which we call as stress. Now, strain. Strain is what we feel, what humans experience, the result of the stress. When we are doing a heavy task, our body is responding in terms of exhaustion, in terms of fatigue, in terms of discomfort, in terms of overloading. So all these we consider in the category of strain, which affects stress which is the effect of the stress on the individual. This strain can be measured by things like blood chemistry, how much like the acids which create the fatigue have been accumulated in the body. For example, oxygen consumption. A rickshaw puller can require more liters of oxygen per minute than the person who is doing the computer task. The electrical activity of the muscles, which we will understand in detail in the forthcoming lectures. Electrical activity of the brain, which is a sign of discomfort, activities, and we learn so many things from brain signal interface. Heart rate, a primary factor for stress measurement. Body temperature, work rate, errors and attitudes. So these are all what we supposed to be our strains of the body. Now next is muscle physiology. I will not go in detail. I will just simply say that there are two types of muscles, voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary muscles are which work as we direct, as brain control. Involuntary, which work throughout the clock, or 24 hours of the clock. So these are cardiac muscles or smooth muscles, digestive muscles. But skeletal muscles we are mainly concerned because we are looking about the evaluation of the work of industrial tasks. So in this, about 400 skeletal muscles which are attached to bone by tendons, and bone is attached to another bone by ligaments. So these muscles contributes towards the mechanical output of the body. So these skeletal muscles give us the mechanical output, which is a conversion of the energy into an output from the food which we take through the metabolism activities. And these muscles are composed of many fibers, which are called myofibrils. Myofibrils, which I'll show to you. These are combination of the active and myosin fibers. They're arranged in a bunch order. The length of the fibers vary from 0.2 to 5.5 inches. These fibers are connected with nerves, with axons. These goes to the central nervous system. Central nervous system goes to the brain, and then the directions comes. As the motor units are fired, muscle contract or expands. This is the basic structure of the muscle, where what we see is, the important thing is, this is muscle belly, then nucleus, which are connected. These are connected through motor neurons. This is typical myofibrils. Combine the myosin and actin fibers. Myosin fibers are thick, actin fibers are thin. So actin fibers contracts and expands as the muscle does a work. And in this, contraction is putting the effort, expansion is going to the relax mode. So this is the contractibility of the muscle, where we see three basic stages. One is the stretched state, which is very, we are putting more work in extension. So it is a overstretch, over the relaxed state, when actin fibers are quite away from the center of the myosin fibers. And in this relaxed state, they are in a normal position. In contracted state, when we are applying the more efforts, they are completely covering the myosin fibers, myosin filaments, which we say here. So this is one action of the muscle. Now, how muscle work, how muscle get energy? This is through the food. The food we take converts the energy, and the converts, basically we get the energy from carbohydrates. But sometimes when there is a scarcity of carbohydrate, protein also converts into energy. There are three basic metabolism process. Basal metabolism, where body temperature or function of blood circulation comes into action. Then activity metabolism supplies energy for the muscles. Digestive metabolism supplies energy for food digestion. So all three are combinedly called as total metabolism. Basically, carbohydrates is converted into glucose. Fats or carbohydrates which we eat, we take from the food, is converted into the glucose or glycogen, which is broken down into energy packets, which we call as endocyne triphosphate. Endocyne triphosphate breaks down into adenosine diphosphate plus phosphate radicals. But in this process, energy is released. When released energy is utilized by the muscles, and then it recaptures. Adenosine diphosphate recaptures energy and converts back to ATPs. Sometimes we also get energy from creatine phosphates, which serves as energy storage for ATPs, but it is for very short duration. There are three basic processes of body, how body acts, how body works. One is called anaerobic glycolysis, another is aerobic glycolysis, and third is basal metabolism. Muscle metabolism is nothing but chemical process in which food stuff is converted into heat or mechanical energy. But these two are the process. First of all, take anaerobic glycolysis. Initially, when glucose is broken down and energy is liberated, it does not require oxygen. A person goes on working and it does not require much oxygen, and glucose is further broken down into pyruvic acid. Pyruvic acid further converts it into lactic acid if it does not have much oxygen, because body lungs are not working that fast in those kind of exercises. For example, heavy lifting, for example, push-ups, leg press. So these exercises does not require much oxygen, or lungs does not take that much oxygen. That is why it is sometimes advised to take more oxygen before lifting the weight. So it converts into lactic acid, and lactic acid is nothing but a sign of lactic acid means fatigue. More fatigue is accumulated into the body. But in aerobic glycolysis, because of the presence of the oxygen, pyruvic acid breaks down into carbon dioxide and water rather than being converted into lactic acid, which creates a kind of muscle fatigue. So this is called aerobic glycolysis, like jumping, running, jogging. All these are aerobic glycolysis. The sources of energy: ATP, creatine phosphate, adenosine triphosphate, which breaks down converts energy as it goes. Anaerobic glycolysis supplies less oxygen and it is further required for the work. So the work increases and aerobic metabolism takes over, because you require more oxygen and lungs started working more, and you'd keep on taking the more oxygen. So it takes over from anaerobic to aerobic glycolysis process. So these are two basic types of working patterns, either aerobic or anaerobic. In some, like static loads, is generally an anaerobic process. Running, rickshaw pulling. So there are certain combinations of aerobic and anaerobic process. When we understand that what is aerobic, what is anaerobic process, we can better understand the workload on the person. When we better understand the workload on the person, we can assess the working pattern and the work measurement. In ergonomics, work measurement is called as the level of risk assessment of discomfort or fatigue. I repeat it, in ergonomics generally we call work measurement means assessment of the level of risk associated with the work for development of fatigue or discomfort. When we try to assess the work, there are two categories of work, either static in nature or dynamic in nature. Static generally involve anaerobic, dynamic may involve aerobic. In statics, muscles are sustained muscle contraction. For example, person is gripping a lever for a longer time. Dynamic, person is cutting grass on the grass cutting machine, where repetitive muscle contraction is there. In static work, blood flow is reduced. In dynamic work, blood flow is enhanced, improved. Oxygen consumption is not increased because it is an anaerobic kind of work, but here oxygen consumption is increased. Your aerobic power increases. Your oxygen inhaling capability increases. You require more oxygen. This is oxygen independent energy production. It is oxygen dependent energy production. Here, glycogen converts into lactic acid, which accumulates muscle fatigue. Here, it converts into lactic acid, but because of the presence of more oxygen, because of more O2 is there, it converts and break down this lactic acid into CO2 and water. So these were two categories of work we generally assess, and there are many methods to evaluate or to measure the work or strain level. There are two categories in which ergonomics have categorized the methods for measurement of work. One is objective measurement of physiological strain, and the another is subjective measurement of physiological strain. In objective measurement, mostly methods require some kind of equipment, help of the equipment, because it is a direct measurement of fatigue over the body. Either you measure heart rate, you measure blood pressure, you measure ECG pattern, you measure blood flow of the body, you measure kind of electrical activity from different muscles, you measure the resistance of the skin. So all these are body temperature. These are direct measurements, some kind of direct correlation between strain over the body and the measurement parameter of fatigue or discomfort. But there are many methods for subjective measurement of physiological strain. Generally, in the initial stages of work measurement, ergonomists prefer subjective measures method. That is why sometimes people say that the ergonomics is nothing but a checklist, but it is not that. But it is an initial measurement. There are many methods, few of them have been listed here. For example, Collett-Bishop discomfort map, Boak's rating of assessment of effort, visual discomfort scale, where perceived discomfort is recorded as given by the person involved in the task, Rula and Reba, rapid upper limb assessment technique, rapid entire body assessment technique, where body posture and the load on the body is converted into different parameters, which gives a level of risk. Then a strain index, which is a very common method used for evaluation of the repetitive tasks. So these methods are basic techniques which gives directly or indirectly the level of risk associated with the work in terms of discomfort. That is all which we will discuss in the forthcoming lecture. Till then, thank you very much. Bye bye.